So my name is Jenna, and I don't have a perfect setup yet for doing a recording, but I'm tired. Um, it took a long time to get the microphone working properly so you can actually hear what I'm saying. Um, and I've realized that my enunciation is something for me to be mindful of so that people can understand what I'm saying. Um, anyway, I am starting a video blog about the process of designing, constructing, and moving into a tiny home on wheels. And this is the third time I've made this first recording. So it's kind of, right now, all I have is the webcam on my computer and a microphone that I purchased. Um, may have been like almost 2 years ago now, for doing music recording, which I've done a little bit of that with it. Um, I haven't, yeah, the last couple years, there's been a lot going on. Um, anyway, so this is my first um, video that will be seen by others. um, and it's about building a tiny home. And I feel like I'm rehashing now because it's the third time. But so um, my personal challenges about a tiny home on wheels is I'm on disability with bipolar disorder, and I still it's hard to say that because like it's not who I am. It's something that I need to deal with. Um, but it's like I don't know. Like I'm afraid some people now are just gonna be like, oh, one of those bipolars, whatever, and there's kind of a stigma about it. But we also tend to be very creative people, so um, there are sorts of um, there's certain qualities to it that are advantageous as long as they're managed properly. Because creativity can run away with you, and sometimes that's not good. Um, so, anyways, I've been on disability for about 10 years. Before that, I was like a workaholic, basically. Borderline workaholic, let's say. Um, like, I graduated valedictorian from my high school, and I traveled abroad some, like, in high school, my junior year of high school. I was a Rotary exchange student, and I wanted to go to France, but Rotary assigned me to Mexico. Um, so it's like I was an alternate selectee. So Mexico, like, was kind of like the alternates that didn't get another country. They're like, okay, well, you can go to Mexico. And this is back in 1990, 91, so it was before Mexico got so crazy. I wouldn't go to Mexico nowadays, personally. um, but, which I hate to say, but it's just, there's just, yeah. Um, so I was in Mexico for 11 months, my junior year of high school. I knew like 3 words of Spanish when I got there because I studied French in high school. Um, so with 3 words of French, like learned from Sesame Street, basically. um, did I say French or Spanish? With three, it's like past midnight, and I'm really tired, and I should probably be recording this some other time. But I just really am afraid that if I don't get this first video done and ready before I go to bed, that tomorrow maybe I'll just not quite, you know. Anyways, I have the courage tonight. I'm doing the recording tonight. So I knew 3 words of Spanish, learned from Sesame Street when I went to Mexico. So I learned Spanish. I had to learn it pretty quickly. Um, And then in college, my junior year of college, I was fortunate enough to be able to study in Paris for 2 semesters, which was wonderful. J'adore pas français. My French is a little rusty now, but because I haven't used it that much. But hopefully someday I'll get to use it more often again, and then it'll be right back. But anyway, so that was the kind of things I was doing before the bipolar got really bad. And it's a genetic condition that environment, like life experiences, can encourage it to become triggered. And yeah, I started working on an autobiography, so I'll say, a lot of stuff I'll probably fairly often say, but that'll be in the autobiography. So, you can hear that story in a book. um, but sometimes I'll share stories, but I'm trying to focus on the tiny house stuff. So, anyway, so the bipolar disorder is a genetic condition that gets worse over time if it isn't medicated. And I was diagnosed really late. I wasn't diagnosed until I was 30 years old. After it had already gotten so bad that I lost my job and wasn't able to work, and went through my inheritance trying to start a business. But there was like months at a time that I really wasn't able to do any of the work to start a business. And like I said, I graduated valedictorian and things like that. And like my high school, they voted me both most likely to succeed and most artistic for the yearbook. But then the yearbook staff decided you weren't allowed to have two of them, so they made me choose one or the other. So I was like, do I choose to be most likely to succeed or most artistic? And I chose most artistic. So that explains the whole tiny house interest right there. Um, and one time I have a friend from college who lives in Pittsburgh, and I went to visit her. Sorry, my eyes bother me a little. Um, this was several years ago. I visited a friend of mine in Pittsburgh, and she was wonderful to know that this is something that would be great, that I would enjoy. Um, Pittsburgh happens to have one of the handful of Hindu temples that are in the United States. And this Hindu temple happened to be devoted to Shiva, and particularly the aspect of Shiva that helps bring you wealth. And it was really great when we went there, like walking around all this, like the shrine, and looking at the statues and stuff. And then to get into the main central, like the main shrine, when you go in, it's like this little room in the middle, and you go in, and there was a temple priest there in the little loincloth, and like a big, like, circle painted on his belly, and like, the beard, like the whole thing, like exactly like you would see in India. And then behind him was like the room, like the shrine, the actual deity space that you don't enter. I guess the priest enters it, but nobody else. So you go to the doorway of this, and the priest like said some stuff, and I think he rang a bell maybe, and then he had like this golden cone that was like he picked up and like placed on top of the head. Like the cone kind of contacted the top of the head for a second while he said something, or maybe it's just a touch and then off. This was so many years ago, the details are kind of fuzzy. And I like really felt like when he put that on my head, all of a sudden I felt all this like energy and stuff, and which I was kind of surprised about. And then at the end, he gave us some food. He explained there was somebody there. Fortunately, there was a Hindu devotee there that spoke English, because the priest didn't speak English at all. But somebody that was visiting the shrine spoke English and kind of like guided my friend Anne and I through this like this ritual that we had no idea what was happening or what was supposed to happen. And I know me personally, I was like very concerned about being respectful and not accidentally doing a faux pas or something. Um, so it was kind of like this wonderful, like, oh my God, this is so great, but I hope I don't accidentally like do something that would offend you kind of experience. So when he gave us the little like his seeds and stuff, put the seeds in our hands, and the guy, the other devotee, explained that it was a food from the deity. I was like, oh, that's wonderful. And then I was like, is it safe to eat it, or is it considered an insult to eat it? Like, should we give it to the birds? Like, what are we supposed to do with it? So I finally asked, like, are we supposed to eat it? And he's like, oh yeah, eat it. You know, have the blessing from Shiva. You know, and the guy also explained that the blessing of wealth, you could either ask for monetary wealth or you could ask for spiritual wealth. And I internally asked Shiva for spiritual wealth. And then I ended up on disability. Yeah, it was like a year or two after that I ended up on disability. So I don't know, but I have had this huge spiritual journey ever since then, and it's partly because of the bipolar. You have to like do a lot of soul searching and self-understanding just in order to know what's going on in terms of internal cycles of ups and downs, and in order to, you have to understand the bipolar in order to manage it well. And that means understanding yourself and understanding what's biology and what's psychology. And sometimes it's very difficult to discern the two, and of course they affect each other. And anyway, so you learn a lot about yourself if you learn to manage bipolar disorder. And you learn how to not take things too seriously. You have to take things seriously, but you also can't let things get to you. When things happen that, are either outside of your control or just because you didn't understand an aspect of the disorder yet. And I don't like calling it a disorder, yet it is a disorder because it does interfere with life activities. Yet there's also, the word blessings comes up, but I kind of feel like it's too much to call it a blessing, having bipolar disorder. But there are certain, it contributes to creativity, and generating ideas. And I'm glad I'm able to do that. So, who knows? Someday if I can channel it in a way that is more constructive, that would be great. So the last 10 years, I qualified for disability just in time to get my house out of foreclosure. I had purchased a house about a year before that because my job was going well enough. I purchased a house at 27 years old. Woohoo! 800 square feet, plus an 800 square foot basement. And the main reason I did it is I have an art degree. I'm an artist, and I wanted to have the space for doing my artwork. And I haven't done nearly as much art as I would have liked, just because life circumstances. But I have done art along the way. So anyway, I was very fortunate and thankful that I was able to get my house out of foreclosure when I received Social Security disability benefits. And I qualified when I was just before I turned 31, a couple months before I turned 31. Is when I qualified. And somehow I just barely managed to work 5 years. If you're able to work and I didn't know this consciously, I didn't really plan it, but if you work 5 years, then you qualify for Social Security disability benefits. And I worked pretty much to the month 5 years. If I had lost my ability to keep doing my job 1 or 2 months earlier, I probably wouldn't have qualified, and my monthly income would be about half of what it is now, because then I would have had Social Security, SSI, and SSI is about half of what I get with SSD. SSD is based on what my income was before I wasn't able to work, and SSI is just like a baseline thing that is like poverty level below. It's like it's insane. I don't know. Like, there's a couple of people that I met that are on SSI, and it's not quite half of what I get a month, but it's like a tiny bit more than half. But it's just, I don't know how they do it. So anyway, I'm thankful I was able to work long enough for SSD. So I have an 800 square foot house that I was able to keep. And with, like, I have my house, like the mortgage, utilities, a telephone, which is actually $1 a month because I qualify for food stamps. Internet connection. It's only DSL. I don't have the money for Roadrunner. Car insurance for a car that I haven't fixed for 2 years. I keep meaning to fix it, and then I keep wanting to get stuff like this microphone instead. I learned to walk, and well, there's like shampoo and toilet paper, and I have 3 cats and 1 bird. It's a small parrot, not a big one, but a little guy. Green-cheeked conure, and someday I would like to have a dog again, like a mid-sized dog. I'm actually thinking about getting. I know I'm not talking about tiny houses much, but that's coming. But so anyway, yeah, there's a lot of stuff that's going to be in the autobiography, which I can't actually risk publishing it for 2 years because right now, with where my income is with the SSD, I qualify for help with the copays for my medication, which I'm so thankful for. If my income goes up by $200 for the entire year, if my yearly income goes up by $200, in terms of if I earn $200, I will no longer qualify for help with the copays for my medication, and that bill would be anywhere from $400 to $900 every month just for my medication, which I can't afford. So the main medication I take, it's Seroquel extended release, and I need the extended release version to, keep my brain needs a steady, slow release in order to know what's going on. Like a normal non-extended release, it's like huge dose, and then there's nothing in my brain. Huge dose, nothing in my brain, and that doesn't work. I get really, it's kind of like going on sugar highs and then hitting the lows or something like that. It's not good. So anyway, in 3 years, the patent expires on the extended release version of Seroquel. So in about 3 years, it would be like maybe $20 a month for the generic version of what now costs about $800 to $900 a month. So, The help with my medication is in like January, February of each year. They determine whether or not I qualify for the help based on if I earned any money in the previous year, like in addition to the disability benefits. And so in 2 years, it's safe for me to start earning some money. And then by the time the following year comes around for them to decide if I qualify, that will be when the generic version of the medication is available. So it doesn't matter if I don't qualify anymore because I only have to come up with $20 a month. So, wow. So anyways, my plan is to build a tiny house on wheels to put in the backyard. I have 1/3 of an acre. So I want the tiny house on wheels in the backyard to live in personally. And then I'm going to rent out my 800 square foot house in order to at least cover the mortgage, the upkeep of the property, the utilities. And I don't know if I can charge enough to have some profit as well, like, to help out with groceries or something. I have to do some research about that, about what's a reasonable price for the area. So that's what I want to do. And then having those main living expenses covered, in terms of like shelter and utilities, that makes it so much easier to do something like publish my autobiography. And if it does well, like, I wouldn't qualify for food stamps anymore, but I would be earning enough money to buy my own food. And the way that Social Security disability works, it's really complicated in the sense of getting off of disability, like trying to work again. It took me like 8 years to admit to myself that I'm probably never going to be able to have like a normal full-time job. Working full-time is just too difficult. The way my bipolar works, like the medication I take helps. Without the medication, I'd be a nutcase. I would just be like all over the place. In the sense of both depression and like just whoo. Medication is, I'm glad that they did learn how to diagnose and medicate what I have. A lot of people believe that Van Gogh was probably bipolar, and he created fabulous artwork, but he also cut off his ear, so I'm glad there's medication to keep me on a more even keel than he was. So anyways, once I have the tiny house and I'm renting out the main house, and the main house needs to be fixed up some too, to be ready for renting. I need some TLC because I haven't had the money or the energy to keep up with repairs. So, excuse me. It is 12:15, midnight, and yeah, I should go to bed pretty soon. But so my plan with this video blog, so I have bipolar disorder. I'm on disability. So I have, in terms of building a tiny house on wheels, I have many challenges or limitations. Challenges is a better word to use. I have many challenges. First, well, financially is obvious. I don't have much extra money. Like, what I get, like, sometimes I have like $200 to $300 extra. I've been neglecting getting my car working, and I've been neglecting going to the dentist, which I really need to go to the dentist sometime soon. I've been neglecting things like that in order to be able to purchase things that help my everyday life experience. Like one thing with all the soul searching that I did, I realized that when I was in fourth grade, I knew I wanted to play a classical instrument. And I wasn't sure if it was violin or cello, but I never even mentioned it to my parents. It's something that I put aside. Um, and it's a long story, but anyway, so I kind of recovered that, knowing that I wanted to learn a classical instrument while I was doing my, understanding myself so I could manage bipolar better process. And so I saved up the money and got a cello. I did 3 months of research online to decide what cello was in my budget, but hopefully was decent. And then I got a few books and have just been slowly teaching myself. And I'm probably teaching myself stuff that you're not supposed to do, but I'm just going by descriptions in books and then just kind of playing around with what feels good. A cello teacher would probably be I don't know, I'm sure they would find flaws in how I play, but anyways, I enjoy it, and I'm getting to the point where I'm fairly decent in first position. Switching positions, I don't know, but I'm happy that I'm learning how to play well in first position, and so that's something where that 200 to 300 extra a month. I didn't fix my car. I didn't go to the dentist. I haven't gotten new eyeglasses in a long time. I actually lost my glasses, so I need to get new glasses. I don't drive a car, so it's all right walking around with things fuzzy once they're a certain number of feet away. I squint when I'm in the store, but I'll get glasses soon. But anyway, so I've been making sacrifices like that in order to, have things like art supplies and my cello. And anyway, having a tiny house helps financially with being able to start earning money, and making that, it's really scary because you have 9 months of trial work period. You have 9 months of, if you work more than 40 hours in that month and you earn more than $1,000 in that month, it's one of those trial work months used up, and you get 9 trial work months in a 5-year period. And once you use up that 9th month, you get 3 more months of benefits, and then you're cut off. No more disability benefits. So you have to really make sure you don't use up those 9 months until you know for sure that you're going to be able to support yourself indefinitely. Because it takes years. It can take 2 to 3 years to qualify for disability. I was really lucky. My process, I was diagnosed in March, and it took me about 6 months to admit to myself that I had to apply for disability. I didn't apply until I was at the point where I hadn't paid any bills at all other than utilities based on somebody's advice for those 6 months. But then I ran out of money for the utilities, and so I had to borrow money from a friend so my utilities weren't turned off. And I was like, okay, 6 months and I haven't even managed to be able to fill out a job application. I'm not going to be able to do this on my own. I have to apply for disability. And so I applied in August. This is in 2005. And I was really, really lucky and was approved for disability, I guess, in November, and my first check was in December of 2005. So about 4 months after I applied. And the social worker that was helping me with it told me that in her entire 20 years of helping people with this sort of thing, she had never seen anyone qualify for disability benefits that quickly. And that first check came just in time to get my house out of foreclosure. So I was very lucky and very thankful. So anyways, with building a tiny house, I want to have it finished within 2 years is my goal. But I'm not going to be able to do it alone. So what I'm hoping is that I'm hoping to get enough sponsors that are able to help out with the actual materials for building. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to email Amazon with a link to the YouTube video and ask them if they would please donate a good video camera. Because right now all I have is the webcam on my computer. And I need to get glasses, so I really shouldn't use that money to get a video camera in order to do the video blogs. So yeah, disability doesn't have any dental well, I think they cover the eye exam, but not the eyeglasses. So, I don't know, I have to look it up. It changes from year to year. But, you just do the best you can, right? But, so I'm hoping to have help with sponsors donating, equipment and materials for building the house. And then I'm hoping that people that have construction experience, especially people that have experience already with building tiny houses, because I know that there are certain considerations with a tiny house that someone who builds big houses wouldn't necessarily know about, such as controlling the condensation and having the walls hopefully only 3 inches thick. A lot of the designs I worked on, I was hoping to have just basically 8 feet wide. And I don't know if a full 8 feet wide. I always wonder about, well, how do you get the drip off the roof properly then? And anyway, so I'm hoping that people that have experience with building tiny houses would be generous enough to donate some of their time in exchange for the promotion of the YouTube videos and people knowing how they've helped, or just out of the goodness of their heart. And it just happens to help the business as well, which is great. And then also I'm gonna need help with the actual construction. I would love to build the whole thing myself, but I know that's not very realistic, partly because of the bipolar. When I'm in the depressed part of my cycle, all I can manage is feeding my cats, my bird, myself, and that's it. And I either sit wishing I was in bed, but doing my best to not be in bed, because sleeping too much kind of doesn't help the process, or watching TV. TV that is something to watch but not challenging. I watch a lot of bad TV, actually, when I'm depressed, because you don't have to think. It's just, anyway, it's just something to occupy the time while waiting for the depression to pass. And one thing I am proud of for myself, I'm proud of myself for finally learning, it took 8 or 9 years, to learn not to make up stories about the depression. When I'm feeling depressed, it's I don't look at my life and try to be oh, I'm feeling this way because of this or because of that. Now I'm just oh, wow, okay. I'm in the down part of my cycle, and it's just brain chemistry. And so I've learned if I try to push myself, in the past I could push myself and just do stuff anyway. But that doesn't work anymore. I guess mostly just because of, the way the bipolar got worse before as diagnosed, and then it took about 5 years to find a medication that actually was helpful. A lot of the medications I tried in the beginning really didn't help. And like they had me on antidepressants as well as something to manage the bipolar, and I think the antidepressants made the bipolar worse. So I decided to stop taking antidepressants like 5 years ago, 4 years ago maybe. And it definitely makes the manic episodes less extreme, less of an issue. But then I have the depression and nothing to help with it. So I just have to wait it out. Luckily, it's like the really bad part of it's only a few weeks. The depression altogether is usually a couple months. But it's about 3 weeks where it's just like I can't really do anything other than make sure I'm fed and my pets are fed, and that's about it. So, one thing, Neuro Optimizer. I learned about Neuro Optimizer 2 or 3 years ago and started taking that. It's an over-the-counter supplement that it's nutrients that are naturally found in the brain, and that has helped a lot with the depression not being as bad as it used to be. So thank God I found out about Neuro Optimizer. If you know anyone who has bipolar or any sort of, depression or even Alzheimer's or something, the Neuro Optimizer should help. 'Cause it's just the stuff the brain needs in order to function well. Like vitamins for the brain, woohoo! And they're all natural, and so anyway. So I'm gonna need help with the actual construction of the tiny house. And I do want to help out with the construction. And then, like, this is where I'm thinking, like, oh, I already, like, did this recording twice, and, like, am I supposed to say this part again now? Like, it took forever to figure out how to get, like, anyway, I'm still getting used to Windows 8, and it's kind of clunky, and I can't wait till I can go back to a Mac. I was a total Mac person. Like, the job I used to have, I insisted on having a Mac. I had the only Mac in the entire division, but like I was a web designer. I was a web designer hired in 1998. So I like really helped set the design standard. I worked at Cornell for the library, and like I worked in the division of rare books and manuscripts, which was kind of great working with the original materials there, like the rare books and journals and Sanskrit tablets and all that fun stuff. But so anyways, I was the only web designer, and I was like always teaching myself because web design was a new thing back then. There wasn't really anyone to learn it from other than what you could read online. So but I insisted on having a Mac even though everyone else had a PC, and luckily they indulged that. But I had a personal Mac laptop at home that died, and I spent months and months saving up for it, and I had it for a year or so, and then it died, and then it's like I had no computer at all for I think like a year to a year and a half, because it was just too expensive to get a new Mac. And so it was like this 3-month process of like gradually like breaking down to like, I'll get a PC. Oh, okay. It's like, yeah, it only costs $400 instead of $3,000, or $800 instead of $3,000 or whatever. Like the one, I could only afford the $400 one, which I guess would be like getting an iMac. I was totally into the pro stuff, but like an iMac would be like what, 1750 or something. So like getting a PC for 400 instead of an iMac for 1750. It's like, I really wish it wasn't necessary, but at least I'll have a computer. And I know it's kind of crazy, but it's like it took me 3 months or so of like being able to be in a space where I would purchase a PC. And I suppose that's the one place where I'm like really kind of I'm not sure what word to use, but anyways, Mac is so much better. You know, Mac actually cares about if things work properly and if they're easy to use. And if you can use the software that you purchased last year, and if you can open the file that you put on a CD 7 years ago. And, you know, Mac actually cares about that stuff. And that's why I like Mac. But once I have a tiny house, maybe I can afford a Mac again. That would be really nice. Yeah, so anyways, I'm doing this video blog. I do kind of ramble, but hopefully what I say is interesting. About the process of building a tiny house and hoping that there's the support out there of, you know, people who understand about that desire to live simply. And I should probably save it for the next video, but so far the smallest I've been able to design for myself is 24 feet, and 28 feet probably would be the most comfortable, but it seems huge. I keep trying to get it designed to 20 feet, and it never quite works. And that's partly like I have 3 cats and 1 bird, and I'm hoping to adopt a service psychiatric dog. If I can raise the money for it, it's like about $7,000 to $10,000 to adopt a psychiatric service dog. But it's this wonderful group I found out about. It's I think it's uspoodlesatwork.com or no, .org. US or USA poodlesatwork.org. And they work only with poodles, and they breed the poodles themselves. And then from the day the poodles are born, they have people training them to be a service dog. And so it's like, you know, they teach them things at 3 or 4 weeks old that will help them be a good service dog once they're, you know, once they have somebody that they're working with. And like I used to have just a normal dog. I had a Doberman Rottweiler for 8 years, and she was, you know, I didn't do the best at training her, but I did a decent enough job at training her. Excuse me, burp. In terms of like, I never learned how to get her to not go crazy on the leash if she saw a deer. If she saw a deer, she'd run to the end of her leash and be jumping around and barking like crazy. But other than that, she was trained fairly well. And there's times when I really miss her. But anyway, so I want to get a service poodle, and it might be a Moyenne size, which is about 30 pounds, or it might be a standard sized poodle, which they can get up to about 50 pounds. I'm gonna try and go for the Moyenne size, which is 30 pounds, but it all depends on what poodles they have available at the time and what poodles kind of match my disposition, my personality, like which one. They like have this whole application thing that helps them match personalities of the dog really well with the person that they'd be working with. So anyways, so I want to be living in a tiny house on wheels with 3 cats. One green-cheeked conure, which is a small parrot, probably about a foot high. I did measure his cage once, but I forget. It's about 18 inches by 2 feet probably for his cage, and like 3 feet high. And then I also, I play cello, I do artwork, I do quilting. I have a keyboard for composing music on the computer. And I like to bake. Someday I want to try making my own croissants. Which requires stuff like a marble slab that's been cooled in the refrigerator, so when you roll it out, the butter doesn't melt too much. I don't know if I'm ever actually going to do that, but I've always wanted to try it, and I kind of want to have a kitchen it's conceivable to be able to do that. So, yeah, a small marble slab. I'm only cooking for me most of the time, so, make 4 croissants at a time. Yeah, like a half size. We can do half size. Like make 4 croissants at a time instead of a dozen. That'd be great. But, anyway, so, wow. I've talked a little over 45 minutes, and I'm getting very sleepy. I should go to bed. But, to those that I emailed an invitation to watch this video, thank you for watching. And it's a little weird because there's stuff that I said in the other videos that I really want in this video, but it's already long, and I guess I'll just trust it comes up another time. But then I'll feel like I'm repeating myself, so I guess I'll just have to not worry about feeling like I'm repeating myself to make sure that I say in the videos the stuff that was in the first 2 videos where the audio quality was so bad that you couldn't hardly understand what I was saying. So, anyway, thank you for listening, and peace.